A thunder of jets in an open sky, a streak of gray, and a cheerful...
A loop, a whirl, and a vertical climb, and once again you'll know it's time for the adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle and friends.
Starring that supersonic speedster, Rocket J. Squirrel, with his pal Bullwinkle the Moose, and a host of others.
Hurry, Bullwinkle! The show's about to start!
I'm coming as fast as I can.
Wave to the people!
Yay!
Now what are you doing?
Signing autographs. Let's see. John Smith.
But your name is Bullwinkle!
I know, but that's hard to spell.
We're gonna have a lot of fun! Come on and join us!
Sure, there's always room for one more.
As our story opens today, there is a great deal of excitement in Frostbite Falls. Excitement that seems to center about today's issue of the daily paper, the Picayune Intelligence.
Say, this is news, Caleb.
And we better do something about it.
Yes, even in Frostbite Falls, the citizens respond to the challenges of the outside world and its geopolitical machinations.
Geopolitical macros, my eye. I'm talking about the annual flower show.
But, sir, those front page headlines.
Don't mean a thing. The Picayune Intelligence has had the same front page for 15 years.
The same front page?
Why not? It's always the same stories. Cold War continues, plane crashes, world tensions.
But inside, that's local stuff. That's interesting.
Frostbite Falls dog chases Frostbite Falls cat over Frostbite Falls fence. Frostbite Falls boy meets Frostbite Falls girl.
Just fraught with interest, ain't it?
But for real heart-tugging suspense, look at this.
Wowee! The annual Frostbite Falls Flower Fair and Plant Pageant will be held in the high school gymnasium today.
First prize, a trip for two to glamorous Wichita, Kansas. How about that, Bullwinkle?
It's gonna play the dickens with my hopscotch schedule.
Bullwinkle, you mean you don't have a flower ready to enter?
Rock, I don't even have one ready to come up.
It was true. Bullwinkle had been so busy being a TV hero that he had no chance to tend his little garden. The flowers were in terrible shape.
I think they've lost the will to live.
Then it's too late to plant anything now.
Well, let's take your flower to the show anyway.
So bearing Rocky's entry, a checkered begonia, our heroes started down the Old Ox Road seeking horticultural splendor.
Not me. I just want a big flower.
A big flower? Did I hear you said a big flower?
No, I said horticultural splendor.
Not you, him.
Oh.
Sure, I want to grow a big flower.
Well, are you ever in love?
I am?
Certainly. You see before you in the living natural color flesh the greatest seed seller in the world.
A seed seller?
That anything like a salt cellar?
Say, what's your name, mister?
Allow me to introducing myself. Pete McMoss, President, Worldwide Seed Company.
Pete McMoss?
Hello, Sco, Pete McMoss. This is my assistant, Ivy C. Hall.
Hello, darling.
What's the C for?
Covered?
Ivy-covered halls. Yeah, her I've heard of.
That voice. Where have I heard that voice?
Rock, that was me.
Oh, yeah.
And here is the answer to all your problems.
That's just one seed.
One seed?
One seed?
You notice kind of the echo in here?
My dear Moose, this seed is a direct descendant from the original Jack's beanstalk.
It is?
Certainly. Look here. You remember how in the old story Jack planted the magic beans and they grew clean up to the sky?
And there was a giant's castle?
And the mean giant chased Jack?
And he cut down the beanstalk and destroyed the giant.
And lived happily ever after.
Why are you crying?
I hate happy endings. Well, this is a seed from that very same beanstalk. Plant it and you'll be able to grow a bean blossom as big as your head.
That'd win first prize for sure. Okay.
Bullwinkle, I don't like this.
How come?
I got a feeling something bad's gonna happen.
Well, look on the bright side of it, Rock.
What?
We got a whole new plot started already.
True enough, and we'll see it begin to thicken next time in 4 for the Show or 2 Pairs of Plants. Well, in our last episode, the Frostbite Falls Flower Fair was upon us, and Bullwinkle and Rocky found themselves without a plant to enter. This was very embarrassing.
Naturally. You try walking through town without your plants sometime.
But they were stopped on the road by a pair of sharpers,
Say the name.
who shall be nameless,
Fooey.
who offered them a bean guaranteed to be descended from Jack's original beanstalk.
Bullwinkle, I'd think twice about this if I were you.
If you were me, you'd have to think twice. There'd be two of you.
Well, Flatlander, is it a deal?
Does that bean grow fast?
Just stick it in the ground and jump back.
How much you asking for it?
Well, I'm asking $100.
$100?
But I'll take 2 bits cash.
That's more like it.
And so our unsuspecting heroes bought the bean and set off for the flower fair and plant pageant.
Gee, I can hardly wait. Just think, a bean blossom as big as my ever-loving blue-eyed head.
Bullwinkle wouldn't have been so happy if he could have seen the 2 seed sellers at that moment.
He fell for it, Natasha.
Hook, line, and antler.
Oh, boy. Wait till that thing starts to come up.
Boris, this is the cheapest, most disgusting, nastiest thing you've ever done. Slimy, dirty, mean. Boris,
Yes?
you're my kind of guy.
The Frostbite Falls High School gym was a lovely sight that evening. Beautiful blossoms cascaded their multicolored forms in every nook and cranny. Giant prize vegetables gleamed in harvest splendor. There was only one little mix-up. Somebody had scheduled a basketball game for the same time.
Pass, pass. The ball, stupid.
I hereby give first prize in the melon class to this magnificent cassava.
Jump.
Foul, free throw.
This is terrible, Bullwinkle.
Yeah, we're trailing by 8 points in a Hubbard squash.
And now for the flower judging.
You better plant that seed quick.
Yeah.
And the moose did just that. Borrowing a large flower pot, he thrust the seed deep into the soil and jumped back. Nothing happened.
Suppose he sold us a dud?
But then the flower pot trembled, there was a furious rumbling noise, and...
Hokey smoke, Bullwinkle. Look at that thing.
That's a bean blossom?
Well, it may not have been a bean blossom, but the curious plant was big enough and exotic enough to win first prize.
Congratulations, Bullwinkle.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
You certainly have a green thumb.
Yeah, it's spearmint flavored, too.
Tell me, Your Honor. Hey, where'd he go?
Don't ask me. He was standing right by the flower a minute ago.
Huh.
Well, let's take our enterprise winner home. Gee, it got heavy all of a sudden.
And what's more, Bullwinkle, it's getting bigger.
Yes, as Bullwinkle held the flower pot, the plant grew noticeably larger. Straining every muscle, Bullwinkle was just able to get the plant through the doorway, and even then Rocky had to help.
Gee, I could swear that these leaves were holding onto the door frame.
Whew. Boy, I gotta put it down for a minute.
Hey, you can't leave that there. You're blocking traffic.
But, officer...
He's right, Bullwinkle. Okay, officer, well... Gee, where'd he go?
He was standing right here a second ago, and... Rock,
What is it?
does our flower look different to you?
Yeah. If it wasn't just a flower, I'd say...
What?
I'd say it was smiling.
Well, this begins to look more and more sinister. Don't miss our next creepy episode, Bean by a Blossom, or The Petal Pushers. Well, Bullwinkle won first prize at the Frostbite Falls Flower Fair, but now it seems that his entry is getting a little out of hand.
I wonder what kind of plant it really is, Bullwinkle.
Who cares? It's a winner.
A winner it may have been, but in the days that followed, Bullwinkle began to wonder if a blue ribbon was worth it.
Hey, who took my flower out of its pot and planted it here?
Not me.
Well, it didn't get out by itself. Did it?
I don't know, but we gotta find out more about it. I don't like the looks of that flower.
It speaks very highly of you.
As fate would have it, an expert appeared on the scene at that very moment.
You're the fellas with the oddball flower?
Yeah, who you?
I'm from the FPI.
The FBI.
No, FPI, Federal Plant Inspector.
A plant inspector?
J. Edgar Bloomer is the name.
Glad you're here, Inspector. Just how would you classify this plant?
I'd classify it top secret.
A top secret flower?
You mean we got a hush-hush hollyhock?
Boys, this is the only living example in this country of the Potsylvania creeper.
Potsylvania creeper?
Look here.
Hokey smoke. It says here that the Potsylvania creeper is a vicious man-eating plant.
Oh, now that's ridiculous. Isn't it, Mr. Bloomer? Mr. Bloomer?
Where'd he go?
Hey, Rock.
Huh?
The flower. It's smiling again.
That does it. Bullwinkle, we're gonna cut it down.
Cut it down? My prize winning whatever it is?
A Potsylvania creeper.
Wonder why they call it a creeper.
Who cares? Give me that axe.
But as Rocky grabbed the axe, he found out why they called it a creeper.
Jumpin' G-horse that! It's creeping away!
Sure enough, the enormous plant began to skulk swiftly around the end of the house. Rocky started to chop, but in vain. So fast was the plant growing that he couldn't chop 2 times in the same place. Bullwinkle attempted to tackle the galloping vine, but it simply dragged him along the ground.
Look out, Rock! Here it comes again!
Sure enough, the enormous blossom had gone completely around the house and was sneaking up from behind on our little furry hero. There was nothing to do but run for it.
Run for it!
I already heard the man!
Into town dashed the panicky squirrel and moose.
Hi there, Bullwinkle. What's the rush?
We're being chased by a man-eating plant!
Well, ask a foolish question, you get a foolish...
Now, wait just a second, Bullwinkle.
Okay, Rock. That's long enough. Come on!
But, Bullwinkle, we owe something to our town, our own community. We owe something to this country of ours.
Rock, this is no time to worry about taxes.
No, Bullwinkle, I'm going to go back and face that thing, whatever it is.
But why?
I'm a TV-type hero is why.
I wonder if these things ever happened on radio. Rock, I say,
But the moose was talking to empty air, for the plucky squirrel was zooming back in the direction they had come from.
Gee, I don't see it anymore. Maybe it's just a false alarm. Maybe it isn't a man-eater. Maybe this is the last episode.
And it might be at that, for Rocky was entangled in the leafy vine-like clutch of the fearful Potsylvania creeper. Meanwhile, on a nearby hillside...
Well, that does it, Natasha.
Squirrel is kaput.
When the creeper grabs them, they stays grabbed. This will show fearless leader who's smarter, him or me.
Well, which is bad enough?
Him, you.
Fearless leader here? But I thought we had laws against that kind of thing.
You fool! Laws only keep out honest people.
What do you mean?
If you're a crook, you sneak in anyway.
But...
Don't miss our next controversial episode, Vacation Days, or Visit to a Small Panic.
Well, in the saga of the Potsylvania creeper, things went from bad to worse when fearless leader himself appeared on the scene.
Hello, fans.
And they went from worse to just awful when the creeper seized our friend Rocky.
Help! Help!
Well, we can close the book on that one bad enough. The creeper never fails.
Oh, this is awful, terrible.
You mean about what's happening to the squirrel?
No, about I didn't bring my camera.
Meanwhile, Rocky was being dragged along by clinging tendrils toward the sinister form of the carnivorous creeper. But suddenly Bullwinkle dashed into the scene and began a tug-of-war with the plant for possession of his little friend.
Never fear, Rock. I'll get you out if I have to do it piece by piece.
Oh, boy. Let me go, you creep!
I'm just trying to help.
Not you, Bullwinkle, the other creep.
Oh.
Boris will moose win.
Silly girl. When the creeper grabs them, they don't get away until it lets go by itself.
And at that moment, Bullwinkle, like any red-blooded American hero, dashed home and dived under the bed.
You hear, fearless leader? Moose is chicken.
Moose is chicken?
Yes, moose is chicken.
Only in America.
But you can't just hide there, Bullwinkle.
Who's hiding? I'm looking for something. I always keep it under the bed.
You do?
And here it is.
Oh, yes, the ingenious moose came up with a blowtorch. What's that for?
I'm going to give that creepy creeper a hot root.
A good idea, for although the end of the creeper was already halfway to town, its roots were buried right next to Bullwinkle's very own house. So just as the plant was about to engulf Rocky... And as the startled plant slackened its grip, the speedy squirrel flashed out of its grasp.
Got to get up pretty early in the morning to outwit Bullwinkle J. Moose. Boy, that thing must get up at sunrise.
Well, our heroes were safe, but the town of Frostbite Falls wasn't. For the Potsylvania creeper grew and grew, covering the little village like a blight. And it did no good to try to fight it either.
What's the matter with you fellers? Haven't you ever had trouble with weeds before?
What you gonna do, Eve?
I'm going to give this thing a shot in the head with some triple-strength weed killers. What?
Attaboy!
Hey!
Go to it, Eve. Eve, where'd he go?
Look at that creeper. I think that answers your question.
It's smiling.
Sort of a well-fed smile, too.
I'm getting out of here.
Likewise.
No, you mustn't panic. Remain calm. Stay where you are.
How long, Mr. Mayor?
Just till I get a running start.
Gee, I never thought one plant would take over the whole town.
How'd it be if I governed another hot root?
But by now, the wily plant had figured out a defense against Bullwinkle's blowtorch.
Hokey smoke, it's surrounded by thorns. They're impenetrable.
And what's worse, we can't even get through 'em.
But the ultimate horror was yet to come, for as our boys watched, the creeper formed one section of leaf and stem into a giant green vertical tower.
What is it, Rock?
Oh, boy, boy. Now comes the best part, fearless leader. What a sight it will be.
Yes. Turn your back, Badenoff.
Turn my back? I won't be able to see it happen.
I know. There's only one thing better than looking at something wonderful.
And that is...
Keeping somebody else from seeing it.
Oh, boy.
Oh, how perfectly schrecklich. Oh, you ought to see this, Badenoff.
Yeah.
Well, what can the fearsome spectacle be that fearless leader enjoys so much? We'll find out next time in The Worryin' of the Green or The Look of the Irish. Our story opens today in our nation's capital, where the news of the attack of the Potsylvania creeper has just hit the streets.
X-ray plant captures town.
Beats our state militia in 2-hour battle.
Man-eating plant still at large.
Well, Chauncey, that's what I call news.
What's that, Edgar?
Look here. Vegetable bites man.
In the White House, a cabinet meeting was already in progress. Its main subject, how to deal with the Potsylvania creeper.
As Secretary of State, I say it's a job for agriculture. It's a plant growing in the ground, isn't it?
Of course. That's why it's a job for the Interior Department.
I hear the plant just grew over a state line. That makes it a Commerce Department case.
But it's attacking the country. I think it's a job for the Defense Department.
Nope.
Why not?
It's not a defense plant.
The cabinet wasn't the only group perturbed. All over the country, people began to view plants and flowers with suspicion. The city of Squawkum, Connecticut, started obedience schools for houseplants.
Down, sir! Down, I say!
The North Dakota legislature passed a law ordering all snapdragons and dandelions to be muzzled. And in Mount Vernon...
George, did you chop down my cherry tree?
I cannot tell a lie, Father. It pulled a knife on me.
Meanwhile, back in Frostbite Falls, the man-eating Potsylvania creeper had just about taken over the town. Its ravenous branches grew into every house, into every barn, into every chicken coop. And as it grew, its evil blossoms took on more and more of a well-fed smile.
Well, at least it doesn't eat just people.
That's better.
Isn't it?
Rock. That means it might also like to munch a moose and swallow a squirrel.
But the absolute worst happened when the Potsylvania creeper whipped its branches and leaves into a great green tower.
Golly, Bullwinkle, that looks just like a missile.
Yes, the brainy squirrel had guessed it. With a roar, the green leafy missile sailed off the stem and into the air.
Now, why do you suppose it does that?
Just showing off, I bet.
Alas, Bullwinkle was wrong again, for as the leafy projectile reached its apex, it exploded.
Hooray!
No, Bullwinkle, look!
Oh, my stars and body, that missile threw out thousands and thousands of little leafy parachutes.
And every one of them has a seed on it.
Boris, that means there will be thousands of Potsylvania creepers all over the country.
Makes your blood run colder, doesn't it?
Yes, the Minnesota breeze was scattering thousands of creeper seeds in a wider and wider area.
Bullwinkle, there's only one thing to do.
Move to Canada!
No, somebody's got to catch those seeds.
Impossible!
Maybe, but I got to try.
I'm with you, Rock.
Sally!
Oop!
And the plucky squirrel zoomed upward and began gathering up the tiny parachutes.
It's working, Bullwinkle, it's working.
Little did Rocky realize that at that moment he was in the crosshairs of a telescopic sight on a rifle in the hands of fearless leader himself.
Very well, Badenoff. Pin another medal on me.
What kind, fearless leader?
Sharpshooter.
Gee, was that the shot heard around the network? The one that finally got Rocky?
Don't ask. Pin.
We'll find out next time in It's Only a Flesh Wound or Better Lead Than Dead. What started out as just another flower fair in Frostbite Falls has wound up as a national calamity. For Bullwinkle's entry turned out to be a man-eating plant called a Potsylvania creeper, which proceeded to take over the whole town. Worse, that plant released thousands of little seed-bearing parachutes. And when Rocky tried to recapture the seeds, he became a moving target for fearless leader. Stunned by a near miss, Rocky plummeted downward, but at the very last instant...
Wow, that was close. What took you so long, Bullwinkle?
Had to run home and get my catcher's mitt.
Oh, boy.
Of course, by this time, the creeper seeds were flung far and wide, and soon man-eating plants were growing everywhere in the United States. In swamps, in deserts, in solid rock, even in city streets. Immediately, the nation took action.
Get me the White House. Get me the Air Force.
Get me better homes and gardens.
But alas, nobody seemed to know how to attack the creeper. They tried weed killer. They tried flamethrowers. tried bombs. Nothing worked. Within a few months, even the Empire State Building was nothing but an enormous planter.
Gentlemen, we'll just have to give up and abandon the country.
Well, how do you like those subversive apples, Chief?
Superb, bad enough, a triumph. And for your reward,
Yes, yes?
I am taking you both back with me.
Back to Potsylvania?
Yes.
Oh, boy. Couldn't we have a 5-year vacation in the salt mines instead?
Come along.
And fearless leader led Boris and Natasha to a handy nearby submarine.
I always like to take the 922 sub. It gets you to Potsylvania in time for the morning executions.
Meanwhile, back in Frostbite Falls,
It's no use, Rock. We've tried everything but kissing that thing goodnight.
That's it, Bullwinkle.
What did?
We've tried everything but being nice to the creeper.
Being nice to a man-eating plant?
What have we got to lose?
Us?
nevertheless, at Rocky's suggestion, people did start trying to be nice to the Potsylvania creepers. They watered them, they fed them vitamin pills, they tucked them in at night, they gave them birthday parties.
Happy birthday, dear Potsy!
And the plan worked. The creepers survived well under the worst of conditions, but they didn't know what to make of kind treatment. They began to wilt.
Oh, Doctor, I'm so worried it hasn't eaten anybody for days.
Mrs. Johnson, you've got a sick plant here. I'd suggest 2 weeks at some nice summer camp.
And in the office of a prominent psychiatrist,
Now tell me, when did you start having these feelings of persecution?
And when the head shrinkers begin to move in, it's the beginning of the end, Rock.
true, Potsylvania creepers all over the nation had nervous breakdowns, gave up, and simply shriveled on the vine. Do-gooding had doed good. Soon all that remained of the dreadful invasion of the Potsylvania creeper was one lonesome little seed blowing out over the ocean, where, as fate would have it, it was sucked into the air intake of a mysterious submarine. When the sub came up in Potsylvania and the hatch was opened, the only thing that emerged was a huge blossom.
And look, Dimitri, it's smiling.
Meanwhile, in Frostbite Falls,
Gee, Bullwinkle, where'd you get all those books on plants and flowers and trees?
I thought you'd never ask. I got them
oh, don't say it.
at the
And so we come to the end of another episode of Rocky and Bullwinkle.
the branch library.
Oh, dear.
This episode is over, but the very best of my collection is banned on YouTube. To see what you have been missing, go to archive.org and search for Gyro Screwloose, and I'll see you there.